We are very concerned that Haitians who are taking this irregular migration path are receiving false information that the border is open or that temporary protected status is available. I want to make sure that it is known that this is not the way to come to the United States. That is false information.
NBC News has learned the administration is focusing on returning single adults, but unaccompanied children and some families seeking asylum will be allowed to stay for their court hearings. NBC's Morgan Chesley live in Del Rio for us. Children and some families seeking asylum will be allowed to stay for their court hearings. NBC's Morgan Chesley live in Del Rio for us. Chesky live in Del Rio for us tonight. Morgan, the White House really ramping up deportation flights to Haiti.
Yeah, Shep, you're exactly right. But not everyone will be going back to Haiti.
Storm Grace hit.
They're looking for a better life. They're looking for freedom. They're looking for health. They're looking for security.
Pastor Rivier Lindor recently returned from Texas trying to help the roughly 15,000 Haitians who are seeking asylum. He says the way migrants were treated at the border was terrible. Last month, Border Patrol agents were seen on horseback using ropes to keep Haitians from crossing the border.
They don't care about immigrant people. They don't care about poor people.
He says he understands the crowd was overwhelming, but Lindor said like people.
They treat them like slaves.
The Department of Homeland
people were coming into Poland in just the last 24 hours. When you look at what happened in the last refugee crisis in Europe back in 2015, Poland was one of the EU countries that, was hesitant to take in refugees. Talk about what has changed and the different position now.
Yeah, well, just to put it bluntly, these are not refugees from Syria. These are refugees from neighboring Ukraine. I mean, that, quite frankly, is part of it. These are Christians, they're white, they're Christians, they're white, they're that, quite frankly, is part of it. These are Christians, they're white, they're very similar to people, many people who live in Poland.
Civilized.
They look like any European family.
Christians, they're white.
This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen.
When they say, oh, civilized cities, and in another clip, well-dressed people, and this is not the third world, they really mean white people, don't they?
Now with the Russians marching in, it's changed the calculus entirely. Tens of thousands of people have tried to flee the city. There will be many more. People are hiding out in bomb shelters. But this isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan, that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen.
Now the unthinkable has happened to them. And this is not a developing third world nation. This is Europe.
As you're talking to us, Matthew, we're playing in the latest pictures of some of the refugees trying to get on trains or trying to get out of Ukraine. And what's compelling is just looking at them, the way they're dressed. These are prosperous, I'm looking to use the expression, these are prosperous middle-class people. These are not obviously refugees trying to get away from areas in the Middle East. that are still in a big state of war. These are not people trying to get away from areas in North Africa. They look like any European family that you would live next door to.
Well, the Department of Homeland Security is launching a new program to allow U.S. citizens and groups to financially sponsor Ukrainians who are displaced by the war. Now, the Ukrainians selected under the new program will be granted what's called humanitarian parole, and that's going to allow them to bypass the visa and refugee programs, which can take years to complete. CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya Galvez joins me now. Camilo, thanks for being here. So let's talk about this program. Who's eligible to come to the U.S. and what does this particular process look like?
Hi, Carter. This is the first concrete policy that the U.S. government has announced so far to help achieve President Biden's goal of welcoming up to 100,000 Ukrainians displaced by the war.
Ukrainian refugees boarding buses in Mexico, hoping to join thousands of others allowed into the U.S. in recent weeks through the southern border. But this is the last day they'll be allowed in without a visa. Starting tomorrow, they'll be turned away, directed instead to the Biden administration's new Uniting for Ukraine program. Tatiana Cobb hopes the program will let her sister and nephew join her in Georgia. They've already
Bashum, Bashum, Yahushai, Yahushai, Shalak, Shalak, Mawaf, Mawaf, Wah, Wah, Rayam, Rayam, Wah, Wah, Ainashim, Ainashim, Wah, Wah, Haragim, Haragim, Wah, Wah, Abadim, Abadim, Al, Al, Ka, Ka, Adawamyam, Adawamyam, Wah, Wah, Kawayam, Kawayam, Wah, Wah, Abad, Abad, Baba, Baba, Abad, Abad, Baba, Baba, Abad, Abad, Baba, Baba, Baba Kusha, 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 Yahweh, Yahweh, Bashim, Bashim, Yahushai, Yahushai, Shalak, Shalak, Rayam, Rayam, Wah, Wah, Ainashim, Ainashim, Wah, Wah, Mashapat, Mashapayim, Wah, Wah, Haragim, Haragim, Wah, Wah, Abadim, Abadim, Wah, Wah, Mawathim, Mawathim, Wah, Wah, Abad, Abad, Baba, Baba, Wah, Wah, Abad, Abad, Baba, Baba, Abad, Abad, Baba, Baba, Abad, Abad, Baba, Baba, Yahweh, Yahweh, Bashim, Bashim, Yahushai, Yahushai, Shalak, Shalak, Rayam, Rayam, Wah, Wah, Ainashim, Ainashim, Wah, Wah, Haragim, Haragim, Wah, Wah, Abadim, Abadim, Wah, Wah, Haragim, Haragim, Wah, Wah, Mawathim, Mawathim, Wah, Wah, Mashapayim, 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 Al, Al, Ka, Ka, Adawamyam, 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 Wah, Wah, Kawayam, Kawayam, Wah, Wah, Abad, Abad, Baba, Baba, Abad, Abad, Baba, Baba, Abad, Abad, Baba, Baba, Yahweh, Yahweh, Bashim, Bashim, Yahushai, Yahushai, Baba Kusha, 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 the water, Aman, Aman.
I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eye shall not spare children. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there.